If you're a horror movie fan, you've probably heard of the Bell Witch. This story is often called one of America's most terrifying legends, inspiring films like An American Haunting and The Blair Witch Project. But what makes this tale truly chilling is the claim that it's all true. Our story begins in the early 1800s. A farmer named John Bell moved his family to a quiet, remote part of Tennessee known as Red River. It was a frontier region, surrounded by wild forests and far from bustling city life. This area is now the small town of Adams, forever linked to the mystery of the Bell family. John, his wife Lucy, and their children were looking for a peaceful new start. They built a simple home, farmed the land, and for the first few years, life was perfect. Little did they know, their home would become the setting for one of America's most famous paranormal events. Everything changed one evening. John Bell was outside when he saw something strange in the bush sign animal that looked like a dog, but with an unnatural shape. It stared at him, then vanished into the dark woods. He tried to brush it off, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. But soon, stranger things began to happen. At night, they'd hear the sound of dogs barking, but when they checked, nothing was there. Sometimes, they heard the rattling of chains being dragged across the ground outside. Then came the sound of rats, chewing and gnawing inside the walls. But every time John searched, he found no trace of any pests. What started as minor disturbances quickly escalated. The noises grew louder and more frequent. They heard knocking on the walls and footsteps on the roof. The family began to feel like they were being watched by something unseen. The Bell children would wake up, swearing they heard someone whisper their names from a dark corner of their room. Of course, when they looked, no one was there. Then, one night, a new sound emerged. It wasn't an animal or a creaking floorboard. It was the faint whisper of a woman. At first, her voice was soft and hard to understand, like the wind. But over time, it grew clearer. She began speaking in full sentences, sometimes even laughing softly in the dead of night, jolting the entire family awake in terror. Word of the strange voice in the Bell house spread throughout the Red River community. Curious neighbors came to witness it for themselves, and to their astonishment, the voice would speak, even with visitors present. It seemed this entity had no fear of being heard. Soon, the voice gave itself a name, one that would become legendary: the Bell Witch. The story traveled far and wide across Tennessee. Many people came to believe the spirit was the ghost of a woman named Kate Batts, a former neighbor of the Bells. Batts and John Bell had a bitter dispute over a land deal, and she was said to have died holding a deep grudge. According to local legend, Kate Batts swore on her deathbed that she would return to haunt John Bell and his family. With the mysterious voice now tormenting their home, many believed her vengeful promise had finally come true. The Bell Witch's activity grew more aggressive. It wasn't just sounds anymore, it became physical. The youngest daughter, Betsy Bell, seemed to be the main target. She would complain of being pinched, slapped, and having her hair pulled by an invisible force. The attacks were so severe they sometimes left marks and bruises on her skin. The spirit would taunt the family relentlessly, singing songs, quoting scripture, and predicting future events with startling accuracy. One of the most famous visitors to the Bell household was none other than future U.S. President Andrew Jackson. Hearing the tales, Jackson and his men decided to visit the farm to investigate. According to the legend, as they approached the property, their wagons suddenly stopped. The wheels were stuck, and no matter how hard the horses pulled, it wouldn't move. Jackson famously exclaimed, "By the Eternio, boys, it's the witch." Immediately, a disembodied voice was heard, promising to let them pass. Just as suddenly, the wagon was free to move again. The strange events that followed during their stay reportedly convinced Jackson and his men that the haunting was real. The torment continued for years, focusing its malice on John Bell. The witch would curse him, threaten him, and according to the legend, caused him to suffer from mysterious physical ailments. His health rapidly declined. In 1820, John Bell passed away. The family found a strange vial of liquid near his bed, and when they gave a drop to the cat, the animal died instantly. The Bell, which reportedly cackled with joy, proclaiming that she had been the one to poison him. After John Bell's death, the witch's activity slowly began to fade. It promised to return in 7 years, and then again in 107 years. While some strange events were reported later, the intense haunting that plagued the family was over. To this day, the story of the bell, which remains a chilling piece of American folklore, a tale of a family tormented by an unseen entity in the Tennessee wilderness. Was it a vengeful ghost, a poltergeist, or something else entirely? We may never know for sure. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and spooky as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more dives into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time. Have you ever heard of a ghost story so terrifying that even a future president was left shaken? Let's travel back to the early 1800s in Tennessee, to the home of the Bell family. This isn't just any old ghost story. It's the tale of the Bell Witch, an entity that terrorized a family and became one of America's most famous hauntings. The story started with strange noises but quickly escalated. A disembodied voice began speaking from the shadows of the Bell house. Curious and skeptical visitors flocked to the home, hoping to debunk the rumors, but they all left pale and frightened. The voice, they said, was real. It could answer any question, revealing secrets that no one else could possibly know. It could sing hymns, recite Bible verses, and even perfectly mimic the voices of others in the room. This unseen entity seemed to be everywhere at once, in the walls, the ceiling, and even in the empty air. The main target of this torment was John Bell's young daughter, Betsy. She suffered nightly attacks. Invisible hands would pull her hair, and a mysterious force would push and strike her. The family would hear loud, slapping sounds coming from her room, followed by her pained cries. They'd rush in with candles, only to find her alone, with the witch's mocking laughter echoing around them. The entity often taunted the head of the family, John Bell, claiming it was there to punish him for some past mistake. As the hauntings continued, John's health mysteriously began to fail. He suffered from severe headaches and seizures, growing weaker by the day. And whenever he was in pain, the witch's voice would grow louder, sometimes singing gleefully. The legend of the Bell Witch spread so far that it reached a famous general, a man who would later become the 7th president of the United States. Andrew Jackson, intrigued, Jackson decided to investigate with a group of his men. As their wagon neared the Bell property, it suddenly stopped dead. The horses wouldn't budge, held back by an unseen force. Then, a chilling voice spoke from the air, telling them they could proceed for now, but to return at nightfall. That night, Jackson and his men witnessed the terror firsthand. The witch's voice filled the house, laughing, speaking, and mocking them. One of Jackson's men, who boasted he was a witch tamer, became the entity's personal target for ridicule all night long. By morning, a shaken Andrew Jackson reportedly declared, "I would rather face the entire British Army than spend another night with the Bell Witch." Not long after Jackson's visit, John Bell's condition worsened dramatically. One morning, the family found a small vial of a strange liquid by his bed. To test it, they gave a drop to the family cat, which died almost instantly. As they stood there in horror, the Bell Witch's voice boomed through the house, proudly confessing that it had given John the poison. John Bell died shortly after, in December of 1820. His death is widely considered the only officially documented case in American history where a person was claimed to have been killed by a spirit. The terrifying tale of the Bell, which serves as a chilling reminder that some legends might be more real than we'd like to believe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into one of America's most chilling legends, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from the shadows.